What's going on, world? It's your boy Gemini Brown here, back with another episode of Nalo Kicking Knowledge. Happy Labor Day. Hope all you guys got the day off. Just lay back, chill, do whatever. Alright? Today, we start a new series. And this series is pertaining to houses 4, 8, and 12. Also known as our water houses, also known as our moksha houses, houses of pure liberation. This is where you can free your soul from captivity of conditioning and psychological undoing, so many things. So today we're going to start with house 12. I'm starting with house 12 because house 12 is known as the most mysterious and kind of, I guess, misunderstood house in astrology, because the 12th house traditionally was just known as like a purely negative house. Like, this is the house of losses, losses in terms of people, finances, energy. And the reason that was the house of losses outside of all those things, because at the end of the day, it's the house of service. So you're losing, you're giving away your energy to be of service in the world. Alright? And also some other things that house 12 represents. It represents your actual spiritual nature, your spiritual life. Right? House 5 represents the ancient scriptures that you'll come into within your life. House 9 is responsible for the actual philosophical outlook you have on life, whether that be religious or intellectual, or even like one that just revolves around your career. Okay? So house 9 is your house of where you learn the law or develop your law. And your 12th house is your actual spiritual life. That is when you're in your deepest isolation. How do you connect with your higher source? Okay? How faithful are you? The 12th house also represents imagination. And people with planets here tend to be fantastic artists because of this. Many writers have 12th house planets, many musicians, it varies because it's hard to just pinpoint the 12th house, see a planetary alignment and say, oh, okay, I know what's going on. Nah, it's a lot because lastly, well, no, not even lastly, I can keep going. It also represents isolation, okay, pure solitude. And that can come in the form of a trip to jail, right? Spending some time in jail. You're fully alone, you're with yourself. You know, you got, in essence, you're connecting to the higher source. There's no outside influence, it's just you and the Most High. You know, like monks, a monk or a yogi can be seen from the 12th house. That, you know, people spend time in just meditation and isolation and things like that. Isolation also, you could be isolated because you're sick. A lot of people mentally disabled or mental illnesses are 12th house people. And this goes to the 8th as well. Okay, and 4th house also, like as far as like mental disorders, okay, because keep this in mind when we're dealing with houses 4, 8, and 12, they're all dealing with the psychological processes within us. 12 being our unconscious processing, 8th being I like to call it like in the middle, you know, the middle of the or the basement of the subconscious, and then the 4th house is the front, the mind, the most receptive. Right? So depending on what's going on in these houses, we could see why a person ends up being bipolar or whatever, schizophrenic, things of that nature. But back to the 12th house. So 12th house represents all these things. But most importantly, 12th house is a house of karma. People with planets in 12. Here's the thing. You know, especially me being, I consider myself a 12th houser. And to be a 12th houser, one, I say you either have an influx of 3 or more planets, but personal planets: Sun, Moon, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn. I can't fully vouch for the outer planets having an effect karmically, event-wise, within you being a 12 houser. Okay? So, for myself, I have Venus, Jupiter, and Mars tightly conjunct in the sign of Leo in house 12. Like, you know, a person who has like a 12th house Uranus, that impact is completely different than a person having personal planets there. I would just say if you have outside planets in the 12th house, that is signaling, to me at least, that okay, you're good in this lifetime. You're gonna feel the social movement of spirituality. You're gonna change spiritually with the world. Okay? And I guess the more I get into the 12th house and talk about the planets there, you'll understand what I mean by that. Because somebody with a 12th house Venus has completely different experiences than somebody with a 12th house Pluto, from my experience. There's others out there who will vouch for different things, but from what I've seen, it's just different. Okay, so like I said, personal planets in the 12th house, you can consider yourself really a 12 houser. And what does it mean to be a 12 houser? And from my observations, 12 houses get a bad rap for playing the victim role. And let's clear this up right now. 12 houses, most 12 houses are not playing a victim role. They are victims of unconscious patterns going through their being. Any energy that comes into the 12th house is purely unconscious. It's like it works like a lightning bolt. It comes out of nowhere. Okay, it's there. It doesn't make itself present until it's ready. So, a person with a 12th house Jupiter, from the time that they were 5, you could give them, or give them some things about astrology, and this 5-year-old will grasp the concepts quite easily. But he won't be aware of what he's actually, or she is actually, ingesting. It's because it's already there. So once you see the information that activate that wisdom, it makes itself present. So, the same kid with a 12th house Jupiter may encounter something of astrology on the street and unconsciously know what's going on, right? But a lot of times when you're a kid and you voice your opinion or you say certain things, people don't have enough respect for you or your intellectual abilities to take heed on what you're really saying. So the kid may grow to start doubting himself, okay, or keep his wisdom hidden because he feels like it's not respected amongst the people that he's around. Make sense? So a lot of the times, people with personal planets in the 12th house are presented with these situations where the energy is not honored and not accepted. So it stays hidden. And it comes about in spurts, which in actuality, it you know, like for instance, a 12th house Venus, may make a person a every now and then artist. All right, it depends. The person may have a natural need to create, or they may only create when they're in their feelings. But when they create, they're absolutely, you know, one of a kind and creative. Now that's on the good side. On the bad side, this person, if they're not taking care of their 12th house Venus, it can start to attack them. So, you know, this person may enter into a relationship after, you know, spending countless time single, and once they get into a relationship and, you know, they start having sex, they may become completely obsessed about sex and not be able to control, because once that 12th house energy is activated, it needs constant expression. It's trying to get out of the 12th house. Okay? So people with the 12th house energy, once they block the energy or deny the energy expression, it begins to work against them negatively. So in turn, they start to have these habits that we like to call self-undoing. And, you know, I will be completely honest with you and let you know about myself. So I have 3 planets sitting in the 12th, in Venus, Jupiter, and Mars, opposing Saturn in Aquarius. And 6th house represents reality, the real world, enemies, diseases, you know, your everyday work life. And 12th house represents everything opposite of that. It's fantasy, it's escapism. Okay, it's your own world. So me personally, for myself, part of my self-undoing has come in the space of work. I've been working since I was 15. Okay, and I think my awakening started maybe when I was like 18 or 19. And after that time, I just, you know, when you're awake, you start to see like, man, I'm working all these hours and I only get this much pay, and this person's on salary, so on and so forth. You just start to see the bigger picture. Alright? So within myself, I started to gain more confidence. I started to see that, wow, I can really get caught in this control system if I don't do anything to better myself. So part of my self-undoing came from the fact that I don't like routine. Okay? Routine in the sense of things that are not enriching my soul. So if I'm working in a retail store 5 days a week, 40 hours a week for years, I'm not nurturing my 12th house energy. I'm nurturing some other shit. Okay? I'm nurturing my hard work and discipline. So for myself, my self-undoing, I've never held like a job, I guess you could say, or retail job for more than 2 years. Nah, I just was never able to do it. I'm a Gemini, and I crave change of scenery and communication. Luckily, at this point in time, you know, at 24 years old, I found my realm. I do things like this. You know, I work, my main job is working in education. I'm going to be a future teacher. So that opposition, by noticing myself undoing, my patterns of self undoing, it forced me to propel my energy out the 12th house into the 6th house. Okay? And that's solely really how you work on an opposition. You fuse the energy together. Alright? So guys, I don't want to run out of your time. This is part 1 of our 12th house, of our series on the 12th house. I'll be back talking about planets more in depth and karma and things like that. So feel free to comment. If you haven't subscribed to my page, to do so. Let me know what you think. And until then, peace.